Hey guys, welcome back. It's Maverick here today with another episode of Tensura. So, anyways, last episode, a lot of things happened, a lot of things also didn't happen. We weren't really sure, like, what exactly Rimuru and company are supposed to be doing at this point, and continuing on, we are introduced to a lot of other characters, and some of the, I guess, foreshadowings, if you will, like, who is the real antagonist, and so on and so forth. But before all that, it seems that we have yet another kind of trouble brewing on the surface, courtesy of a certain fairy Ramorous. So, yeah, let's just get into the episode, and hopefully we will have a more clear picture of what they are going to be doing next. Alright, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. Oh, good. I was like, it's not cutting to the opening just like that, right? Or are they gonna cut from here? I think they're probably like I mean, you're probably from like a generation previous, right? Oh. No, wait, but seriously, aren't you supposed to like hear her out first? I can get asking Veldora to, to frighten her a bit, but I feel like she has something important to say though. Or I guess they're gonna take it one thing at a time. Which also makes sense, right? No more interruptions. Come on, get the meeting over with. So we're gonna see, no, not really. I was wondering if we were gonna see the Grandmaster. Or maybe he showed himself and I just didn't see. Ah! There we go. Okay. See, just having like someone appear in the opening doesn't really mean much until you know like what kind of context it's in, right? Ramirez's warning. Well, they literally call it her warning, so... Mm. Well, I agree with this dude. Although I'm kind of thinking that this entire Valdera situation might actually be in more trouble. How are demon lords viewed in this world? Like, it's still not quite clear to me. I kind of feel like he's... hmm. Is there any kind of drawback to this? I guess it depends on, like, how much people actually fear Veldora, right? Though, in all honesty, it doesn't really matter, since Veldora is allied with Rimuru anyways. Right. A plan of action. Revolution! That makes a lot of sense, actually. That's kind of a... I can respect that, actually. But what do you guys mean to him? Like, I don't feel like this is exactly equal, but okay. Oh. Are they actually like a full alliance now? And you were given authority to make this. I feel like there's a lot of things they're just kind of skipping over. Leading a revolution is not exactly an easy task. Mm. Right, so basically not to piss off the church, right? Although that's a good question, right? Because I was also kind of curious, like, why exactly is Bloomund involving themselves in this? Alright. So basically they want allies, right? Hmm. Right, that's why he has the authority. Well, I feel like it's kind of different for a kingdom of dwarves and elves versus a kingdom of humans, though. That's actually quite the. That's actually a callback all the way to the first season, right? Precisely when he made the Tempest Nation. Although I think it's kind of. Mm-hmm. Veldora's just there, still reading manga. Although since they now enter into, like, various diplomatic pacts with each other, this kind of feels like they formed an alliance here, right? Oh, wait. Dragon was actually a human nation? Huh. And those other guys as well, so they're considered human nations, eh? Okay. I think I So, what about the warning again? Your awakening. As a true demon lord? Hmm. I don't even quite remember her anymore, to be honest. The one I am indebted to. And who would that be? The Grandmaster? Okay, what kind of episode title was that? Literally naming it a warning and then boosh! Putting her aside and no mention of it. Like, this is a complete complete switcheroo here. But anyways, quite interesting. I'll see you guys after this. Alright guys, so we finally got down to some business here, and man, was that such a bait at the beginning there. Ending literally on a cliffhanger there, beginning with the cliffhanger, right, in regards to Ramiru's, and even naming the entire episode after her warning as well, and yet mentioning absolutely nothing about, you know, what she has to say and just carrying on. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am glad that we finally got these things sorted out. I think it's long overdue. I've been waiting for them to sort out these kind of things since a long time ago, but anyways, finally, I just felt it pretty funny that they actually pulled off this bait and switch here. But anyways, so I'm actually really glad for this episode. I'm sure that many here would probably look at this episode just like how Gupta views it, you know, all falling asleep, snore, so much dialogue and whatnot. But honestly, to me, this is always the kind of scenario and situation which I find most compelling in isekai works, and especially those that have more of a, you know, especially in regards to the protagonist actually achieving a certain amount of influence, right? I'm not talking about like just the normal hero or adventure, you know, that kind of thing, but those that actually, you know, rise within a kingdom and maybe eventually lead a kingdom as well. These are the types of things and the type of situations that I like to see, right? I like to see them, you know, how they utilize this sort of political grandstanding, this concept of having this political discourse with other nations, and how in some ways they can also bring in their own concepts and their own philosophies or so on and so forth from the modern world, right? Because after all, this is still an isekai, and Rimuru did still come from the modern world, so it's still feasible that he could apply some of the modern world things to this world, right? In terms of how you treat nations, how you weave yourself around this sort of minefield, if you will. And really, I think in this episode, they also touch on a lot of things which I have been questioning for a long time here. Like, for instance, Gazaru's plan, King Gazaru's plan for basically sort of covering up the entire situation in regards to Falmouth, right? You know, the entire invasion and how Rimuru eventually became a demon lord. Because if you guys go back to the previous core, during the time when Rimuru was going out and completely killing off the entire army and whatnot, I said as such that I really don't think this is a good idea from a political standpoint. You know, even though you obviously need to do something to defend your own nation and to, you know, fight back the invaders and so on and so forth, it's really going to also trigger a sort of very violent reactionary response from the other human nations here. And I'm talking about those who are more influenced by the church, right? You know, there's definitely no kind of situation where you can say, oh, because this non-human actually is strong enough to just wipe out 20,000 people, and then and then try to imagine that just the fear of having someone like that, like over fear of its power, would be enough to dissuade others from invading and whatnot, right? If anything, I feel like it would just more encourage them to band together. The enemy of my enemy is an enemy regardless, and in fact, even act as a sort of situation where they sort of forgo or at least temporarily ignore any misgivings that they have within themselves, and all band together to invade Tempest, right? So I was clearly saying as such that I feel like that is the logical conclusion to this kind of situation. So I'm glad that actually more level-headed thinking prevailed, and we get this kind of situation where even though obviously it requires sort of bending the truth and all that, and I'm not entirely certain that this will keep them in the safe, but at least it's a much better situation than painting a giant red target on yourself and then asking for it, right? You're literally asking for an invasion if you're just like, hey, look at me, I'm so strong, I just killed 20,000 people, right? That's really not gonna get you anywhere. I mean, there are times when you can use this concept of fear and whatnot to placate other nations and whatnot. It's definitely not it's not usable in a situation like Tempest is in, where they don't really have any sort of standing in terms of the how can I say this, in terms of the world politics at this point, right? This is far too early to strive for that kind of a diplomatic policy here. So having this sort of story here, and really basically packaging up and feeding this other kind of information, really I feel like staves off much of that unwanted situation and unwanted attention there, right? And so they said as such, and really it's just a smart thing to do overall, right? So I'm glad that they actually went through with this, and instead of just like, okay, so the other nations just were like, oh, we want no part in this and all that, because I don't feel like that's the feeling I get, especially from those who are more so sided with the church, right? And certainly they also mentioned here once again how they have to be very careful in terms of how they, and this goes for all the other various nations, right? How they decide to ally themselves with Tempest here, right? They can't really do anything to piss off the church and whatnot. And I'm glad that they actually brought out this concept of what kind of options you have as a small nation and what you have as a strong nation, right? This goes into like this is like centuries, even millennium old theories on how a country should conduct itself, how a country should conduct its politics. Sorry, not politics. It's diplomacy, based on the various stages and the various power levels that your nation is actually in. So certainly Fuzu, certainly I was glad that Eledo, Ilaludo, or however you call him, right? The ones who are more so in the door elves, right? That guy, the Archduke and whatnot. I think he was very correct to call out Fuzu in that kind of situation, right? Because clearly that's actually why I was also kind of going like, when Fuzu was proposing, all that stuff as well. I was like, okay, so what's in it for you? Like, why are you part of this? If anything, I feel like you should just maybe just stay on the down low and just make sure that what I was actually expecting, to be honest, was for him to just come out and say, this is the situation that our kingdom is in, but we don't want any trouble with Tempest as well. From my side, I clearly view you as an ally, but we can't really do anything to really jeopardize our own position, right? And I guess here they're still adapting that kind of stance, right? They're clearly trying to support Rimuru in some sort of way, right? Basically to gain his trust as well. Basically say, yes, I am willing to stick my head, to utilize our resources to help you, but I'm sure that, at least on the public level, on the surface level, they're probably also going to be like, okay, we have nothing to do with this, we are just a small neutral third country, right? And that's how I would expect them to really treat themselves at this point, until maybe later on when Tempest and its allies that surrounds it are able to gain more of a foothold on the political stage, on the world stage, and then maybe they can go like, okay, we are going to be forming our own sort of little alliance here, right? And so I guess at this point, they've kind of came to a consensus that, they are in a way a sort of a semi-alliance here, but it's not going to be public yet. It's not really going to be a case where, okay, we're all in, buddy buddies together, right? But clearly it has the beginnings of this, and certainly with the way that this is currently going and the way how isekais generally work, I wouldn't be surprised if in the future they do sort of form their own alliance that completely combats the church, or maybe some other potential kind of alliance here. In fact, I was actually, one of the things that kind of threw me off into confusion was what Rimuru said at the very end here, right? This is the third human nation that they may have diplomatic relations with, because I actually always thought that Dwargon was basically a nation of dwarves, and that sorcereric dynasty, or whatever it's called, the one that the Archduke represents is basically a kingdom of elves, right? So I thought that they were not really viewed as a human nation, right? A human nation would be like Blomland and Falmouth and so on and so forth, which is clearly the majority race is humans and ruled as such, right? The ruling class is humans as well. But I guess that's not exactly how they classify things around here. I'm not quite sure, because they certainly don't really go into that far detail in terms of talking about, the political situation and whatnot, and how it's and how it actually is, but I do find it kind of interesting, right? So I guess what's being implied here is that there's basically humans and monsters, right? And that's how they basically classify them. And monsters would include like beasts and demon lords and magins and so on and so forth, like goblins, blah blah blah. Whereas dwarves, elves, and humans would be lumped together as human nations, question mark, right? Again, that's kind of weird to me, but okay. I guess so, because I would definitely feel that not only in terms of the respective power levels of the nations, right? Here they're clearly implying that the Dwargon nation and the Sorcerer's dynasty, they have more power, right? They're probably more powerful militaristically and economically, but I was thinking that there's also another major component in that drives them to be able to form these alliances with Rimuru, and that being the fact that they aren't human nations, right? They aren't exactly humans. And so they are a little bit more willing, right? A little bit more open to these negotiations and forming actual alliances with someone like Rimuru and a country like Tempest, right? So I don't know. Maybe that's something to look into a little bit more, I guess. But that's basically what my thoughts are on that part. And I think it makes perfect sense for Elaludo, right? I think that's how you say his name, Elaludo, right? I think it makes perfect sense for him to ask like what Rimuru is wanting to become a demon king for, or a demon lord for. Makes total sense. And Rimuru's reply makes total sense as well. As I said, it's basically a callback to when he formed the Tempest Nation in the first place, right? So it's never changed, and basically he's just saying, yeah, I need power to protect my country. It all makes quite logical sense there. So no big problem there. No, actually, I think the thing that's kind of surprising to me, again, is many of you guys who have read the light novels and are fans of the series have been mentioning this to me, but surprisingly it is quite solid in terms of not only, right, like sort of this this kind of political game, if you will, but also in a lot of what I consider to be aspects of this sort of this kind of political game, political grandstanding, and so on and so forth, right? Including like, clearly recognizing what they represent, the position that they are in, and so on and so forth, right? Like Elaludo, right? And clearly throughout the entire time he was kind of like, kind of like the bad guy character in a way, right? Or a more antagonistical character here. But once it's been confirmed that okay, yeah, we are going to be doing this with Tempest, and this is what we're trying to do, why does he get down on his feet and kneel to Rimuru, right? Because they are not on the same level. He's just an archduke, right? Even though he does represent the nation, clearly there is still this set of precedents here, so he needs to follow it, right? And that goes with a lot of other situations as well. Which is why, in a sense, that I was actually also calling out some of the characters, saying that, this is not exactly your time to speak, and so on and so forth, because even though, you might think that, okay, that's so Mindokusai, right? It's so annoying and irritating, why can't we just, clearly go through things? But diplomatic stuff, they take time, right? They take they follow a clear set of rules and guidelines here, and it's really for the best interests of everyone involved if such a rule is met and such guidelines are met, because otherwise you can get into sticky situations in the future. So I'm actually quite surprised and quite glad in a way that this series certainly actually treats this aspect of the of this sort of isekai fantasy with its proper respect as well. So, just to give my props on this point here. No, there obviously we still got the entire claimant situation and so on and so forth, but I'm not going to go into that too much. I was kind of surprised that they just went over the entire inciting a revolution part so quickly and easily, though. So that leads me to believe, especially considering everything else that they touched on in this episode and they've touched on so far, it leads me to believe that they probably actually are going to just skip through the specifics of how the revolution was started, how the civil war started, and how in the end, Yom was instilled as king of the nation, of the Falmouth nation, because that is actually, that is actually really, really complicated and really involves a lot more pain and suffering and bloodshed than they give credit for, right? Just simply saying that, okay, we're just gonna do this and it's done, right? It's a lot more complicated than that, and I guess we'll have to see, right? I do have this kind of suspicion, though, that they're probably not going to focus on that part too much, right? I'm not sure if in the light novels they actually took that kind of perspective at all, right? And like following the stories of Yuan for a little bit and the various stuff that he did in order to successfully lead this revolution and take over the throne and whatnot, because that in itself can be an entirely, an entire spin-off story, right? And indeed, in a lot of fantasy works, whenever we do encounter this kind of situation, even in a lot of isekai works as well, when we do have this kind of situation, they typically do shift the focus to something like that, because that is not just a side story or a side arc or whatnot. That in itself is worthy of multiple arcs, if you will. So probably we're not going to be focusing on that. We're probably going to be focusing more on on Rimuru's quest to try and fight Claimant and whatnot. But I just wanted to point that out, and I would like to know if actually the light novel goes into a little bit more detail in terms of how to actually turn the Falmouth nation into basically an allied nation of Tempest. So yeah, anyways, okay, this was a little bit long, but as you guys might realize, this is actually a part of these kind of isekai fantasy works that I do enjoy a lot on, and I'm glad that Tensura is exhibiting some of this stuff as well. So anyways, that's it for this episode. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.